The morning the world seemed to fall apart, the sun was shining too brightly for my grief. It hurt my eyes when I looked through the window of my small apartment, almost mocking the heaviness in my chest. I had never felt so disconnected from everything around me. Life was moving as if nothing had changed, yet everything inside me had. I stood in the middle of my living room, still wearing the same shirt from the night before, staring at the unfinished cup of tea on my table and wondering how something as simple as loneliness could feel this loud. The silence had weight. The walls looked closer than usual. I had always believed I could handle anything on my own, until the day I realized I couldn't. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that bring hope, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. It really helps the channel grow. My name is Ryan, a 33-year-old graphic designer who used to take pride in independence. But independence had a strange way of betraying you once solitude stopped feeling peaceful and started feeling like a punishment. My life had been running on routine for years: wake up early, make instant coffee, go through emails, sketch designs, fight with deadlines, and fall asleep before the loneliness caught up. It had worked for a long time, until the week I lost my mother. Her passing wasn't sudden. It wasn't unexpected. But it still broke something inside me, something I couldn't quite put into words. She had been my anchor, the kind of person whose presence made a room feel complete. When she left, everything felt unfinished, including me. People came to the funeral with comforting words, with promises to check in, with warm embraces that lasted seconds but disappeared the moment they walked away. They meant well, but their worlds kept spinning while mine had gone still. I didn't blame them, I just envied them. For days after, I avoided calls, ignored messages, left plates of food untouched. I sat alone at my desk pretending to work, pretending to breathe normally, pretending to be strong. But grief has a way of peeling away every layer of pretense until all that remains is the truth. I was exhausted, drained, and quietly breaking. The only person who didn't give up trying to reach me was Amira. She was a colleague from a neighboring department, someone I had spoken to casually in the office cafeteria over the years but never really let into the deeper places of my life. She had a calmness about her, soft dark hair tied loosely most days, a light summer blue dress she wore often, and warm brown eyes that seemed to look at you as though they understood more than you said. She never tried to force conversations, never pushed past my boundaries, but she always remembered the small things I mentioned. Like my favorite tea flavor. The way I preferred quiet mornings. Or how I used to send my mother flowers every first Sunday of the month. After hearing about my mother, she didn't send flowers. She didn't write long paragraphs of sympathy. Instead, she sent a simple message: I'm here when you're ready. For days, I wasn't ready. By the fourth day, she showed up at my apartment with a brown paper bag of groceries and the gentle firmness of someone who refused to let grief swallow another human being. I didn't invite her inside, she simply stepped in because she sensed I wouldn't stop her. She spent an hour tidying my disorganized kitchen and made me tea in complete silence. Somehow that silence felt different, less suffocating, more grounding. But today was different. Today, she returned because she knew I had reached the point where loneliness was no longer something I could outrun. She knocked twice. When I opened the door, she didn't smile immediately. Her face carried a softness touched with worry. Her hair was tied back, a few strands escaping in the gentle daytime breeze. She wore a simple peach-colored top paired with white trousers, and the sunlight bounced off her lightly, making her presence feel like something warm entering a cold room. I didn't speak. I didn't know how to. She stepped inside and looked at me with quiet understanding before saying the words that would shift something inside my heart: you shouldn't be alone tonight. Her voice wasn't dramatic or loud. It was calm, steady, and caring. A simple statement, yet powerful enough to break through the fog in my head. Without thinking, without filtering, without worrying about how it might sound, I whispered back, "Then you'll stay with me, won't you?" Amira didn't flinch. She didn't act startled. She just nodded lightly, as if she had already made that decision long before I said anything. What followed wasn't magical or perfect. It was human. She took my half-empty cup of cold tea and replaced it with fresh chamomile. She opened the balcony door to let air flow in. She asked me to sit, not with authority but with gentle insistence. I sat on the couch, hands resting on my knees, staring at the sunlight spilling onto the floor. The day felt unusually quiet, the city noise softened by distance and the breeze carrying faint echoes of passing cars and street vendors. She sat across from me, not too close and not too far, giving me space and presence at the same time. I wasn't sure how to speak my feelings aloud, so she spoke first, not with questions, but with observations. She said it was okay to grieve, okay to break, okay to feel lost. She spoke about her own father whom she had lost 5 years ago and how she had pretended to be strong until her mind and body forced her to face her pain. She described the loneliness that had followed her for months, how she had sat in the same silence I was sitting in now, and how she slowly learned that healing never happens in isolation, it happens when someone sits beside you long enough for you to breathe again. Her words didn't fix me, but they cracked something open. I found myself talking, really talking, for the first time in weeks. Not in neat, organized sentences. Not in calm, reflective statements. But in a messy flow of emotions about how helpless I felt, how guilty I was for not being able to save my mother from her suffering, and how terrifying it was to imagine a future without her. Amira listened with complete attention, not rushing, not interrupting, not trying to fix the unfixable parts of my life. She placed her hand over mine when I struggled to breathe through my own words, grounding me, reminding me that I wasn't alone in that moment. We spent hours talking. The daylight shifted from bright morning gold to warm afternoon glow. Birds chirped outside, children played on the street below, and for the first time since my mother's passing, the world didn't feel like it was happening without me. I was part of it, even in my grief. At one point, she stepped into the kitchen and returned with simple sandwiches she made using the bread and cheese from the groceries she had brought earlier in the week. I ate slowly, not because the sandwich tasted extraordinary but because someone cared enough to make it. That alone made it feel nourishing in a way food hadn't felt for days. By late afternoon, she suggested we go for a walk in the small park 3 blocks away. I hesitated, unsure if I had the energy, but she placed a hand gently on my shoulder and said the air might help. We walked quietly through the leafy paths, passing families having picnics, elderly couples sitting on benches, and children laughing near the fountain. The world felt alive, and for the first time, it didn't feel like it was mocking my pain, it felt like it was welcoming me back. Amira walked beside me, matching my slow pace, her presence steady and warm. At one point, a small boy ran past us chasing a yellow balloon, and the breeze made the trees sway lightly. I inhaled deeply, feeling something open in my chest that had been locked away since the funeral. I didn't know if it was healing, but it was something close. When we reached the old wooden bridge overlooking the small pond, I felt tears build up again. Not from sadness alone, but from the strange relief of not being alone. Amira didn't say anything this time. She simply stood next to me, close enough for her arm to brush mine. In that moment, presence meant more than 1,000 words. As the sun began to lower, casting soft orange streaks across the sky, she turned to me with a gentle question unspoken in her eyes. I answered without words, just a slow nod, telling her I wanted her to stay a little longer, maybe for the evening, maybe until my breathing stopped shaking.